Going live.
Okay. All right, we're live for another Tech Talks. We have a big table of people around us this time, and that's because we have Julie and Karen, two of our student success coaches, with us. I love doing sessions like this one because I like it when we can kind of open the black box of what different staff members or departments or offices do for our students. Because I think probably a lot of faculty don't really necessarily know what the two of you do and how you help students be successful in their online classes. So Melanie, you kind of are leading the show today, so take it away.
Yeah, so do you mind if we ask you guys some questions to get started? All right, so in your role as student success coaches, will you just tell us a little bit about what you guys do? What does a student success coach do?
So we support our online students in a variety of ways. Mainly try to help with Canvas issues at the start of every quarter, before every quarter starts, help them figure out how to navigate around. We can meet with students on Zoom, they can call us, they can text us. Sometimes they just call and because they don't understand an assignment, how it's written, and all it takes is us kind of reading through that assignment and helping them make meaning, understand what the instructor's asking for. Sometimes it's very simple things. Sometimes they're calling us and in the course of the conversation, they're letting us know that they have housing insecurity, not living in a safe relationship situation. So it can be big things where we're connecting them with mental health services on campus or in the community. Or it can be small things like where to get your student ID card on campus or have it mailed to you if you are a completely online student or not living in the area.
I always like to sum it up by saying that we work with online students. We try to help them get into classes. We try to help them with the business of being a student. Once we get them into their classes and everything up and running, we try to keep them there until they graduate.
Well, I think one of the things that you guys are so good at is you're just a calm, encouraging presence when a student is freaking out about anything, whether it's in Canvas or something else in their class or something in their life. You're just there to help them think through it and take a breath and connect them to all the resources and support that exists. And I think just doing that is so important.
I agree. And one of our first pieces of advice that we give to students, or our first question is always, have you talked to your instructor about this? And 9 times out of 10 they say no. And then we say, I think it would be a good idea for you to let your instructor know how you're feeling or ask this question directly to them. So yeah, that's a lot of what we do, calming down and
Yeah, absolutely.
Even helping them figure out how to phrase a question, how to word a question.
How to write an email to their instructor.
Yeah, that relationship tends to be a little bit scary for some students, and they're really intimidated about going to their teachers and asking questions. They're afraid that they're going to be judged for not knowing whatever it is that they're asking about, and we're a pretty safe place for them to come and test out that question and help them figure out a way that makes them feel empowered to ask.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to a student before we came here who was afraid of talking to her instructor because she didn't want to be seen as making an excuse. And yet, if the instructor is aware, I think, it was a question where I think they would be able to help her, but she didn't want them to see her as trying to shirk her schoolwork or as trying to make an excuse for something that's an actual hindrance to her in her class right now.
So it sounds kind of like one of the really important ways that you help students is by kind of coaching them through how to communicate with instructors when they're feeling a little uncomfortable, or helping them to understand what the instructor is trying to communicate to them, which is awesome. Are there other ways or other approaches, kind of, you've mentioned some already, but aside from what you've mentioned, that you kind of help students address their concerns and their issues?
I worked for financial aid before I came to this job, so I do a lot of looking at a situation, looking at communications from the financial aid office to the student, talking to the student about whatever it is that they heard on their phone calls with financial aid. And I'll do that for anybody in our groups, or even if just somebody knows me and wants to refer to a student to me. I like to be able to try to explain those things in more manageable terms than maybe others. And I know like financial aid offices tend to be one of those points of a pinch point, if you will, like a point where we lose a lot of students. So it's nice to have somebody who can take time to explain in terms that they'll understand and make it really step by step for them. Having that background has really been helpful. We do the same thing with like, I don't know, admissions and registration stuff. Really like anything having to do with making sure that they are staying on top of the things that they need to stay on top of to be able to get through school.
Meeting those academic advisors and counselors is also a really important thing. A lot of times, surprisingly, many students don't know how to find that information. Who is their advisor? How do they contact the advisor? So we help with that a lot too.
I did see in the chat, Professor Street had a question specifically about early alert that might be actually applicable to a conversation we had earlier. Professor Street asks, are you part of early alert? Can you kind of talk about that relationship you have with that process?
Yeah, so I, Julie, am on the early alert team at SCC and have been for many years. And Karen is connected with the early alert, the CARES team at FCC through Cynthia Vigil. And Melanie's putting in that report link if you want to file an early alert for a student at SCC.
And I'll put those in the YouTube description as well after we're done here. So that
Great.
if you're watching the recording afterwards, you should be able to still access those.
Great.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, if you are working with a student, you notice that they may be having some tech challenges or don't seem to be navigating well, following instructions in Canvas, filing an early alert and putting that note in there is a really helpful way for those students to find their way to us for some hands-on support.
And we did a tech talk specifically on early alert, I think last fall. But one of the main points that was made in that session was file those early. The sooner you file those alerts, the more likely the student will get connected with support that they can use.
And in time to still pass.
Right. If it's week 4,
Yeah.
week 5, chances are those students have already given up. We've already lost our chance to connect with them. So do it as soon as you have an inkling of a struggle.
Even see somebody who's not submitting assignments, simple assignments the first week, might be worth an early alert.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That kind of brings me to a follow-up question. It's a little bit off script, but kind of talked about like you deal with a really wide variety of things. I mean, you're coaching students on basically every aspect of the college, which is just for me a mind-numbing volume of things. And so credit to you both for the work that you do. When you are seeing these like students come to you, like what are the common problems? So I feel like that segues nicely into that right now, just because, you know, okay, someone's seeing, you know, the students and they're showing this behavior, they send an early alert. Are there ways to kind of like help a faculty member kind of coach them before it even gets to you so that they don't lose that time with that student?
Yes, that is, we do have those common themes that show up and often show up during the first part of each quarter.
Okay.
One of the biggest questions that we get is about the organization of the Canvas course. Instructors, every course is different. Every instructor has different ideas for organizing their course, but having a nice big landing page and do this first and do this next, kind of step-by-step instruction is really helpful in a Canvas course for students.
A lot of the time, the student that comes to us is somebody who's intimidated. Maybe they're not comfortable in using a virtual environment, computer software, things like that. Maybe they feel like they're inadequate skill wise, and are just they just need the little confidence boost. And sometimes just sitting down, we sit down with them. They might come into the office and sit with us, or we might meet them on Zoom, and we'll help anybody, not just an all online student. Just, you know, as a matter of course, a lot of times they will also end up in the tutoring centers, and the tutoring centers can also help with this idea of orienting themselves to their course. We're looking for things like road signs, you know, look for words like first, start, you know, those buzzy road sign type words that you are going to rely on to help you navigate. And if you don't see those, what do you look for next? And then just always reassuring, you've got this, you totally got this, you can do this. It's so, you know, it's there, just take your time, learn it, get comfortable with it. And once you get used to your instructor's style, everything will be fine. It's just that what I remember most about undergrad years is that first week of classes when you're handed all these syllabi by all these different teachers, and just feeling the monumental task of the hill that you have to climb for the next 10 weeks. And then you just double down on that and realize, like, now that same situation is happening in a virtual environment where you don't have three faces giving you these separate pieces of paper that have their own little style. All of a sudden you have to go into that computer environment and you're reading the information, the introduction from the teacher. Maybe you're viewing a video, but if you're doing 3 classes and you're going in there and you're jumping around between those 3 classes, how are you supposed to keep that straight? And those are the things that our panicking students have a tendency to do. And that's why things like road signs and being very clear, encouraging them to sit down with only 1 class at a time, giving themselves mental breaks between classes, things like that are super important and so easy for anybody to do, really. Like, there's no special skill set in this. It's just having that calm demeanor and willingness to be encouraging and
be approachable, be humanized as much as possible. Like, Karen, what you just said made me think, like, when a student is physically on campus and physically going to a classroom, they're kind of making an intention to be somewhere. You know, I have to know when to leave my house to get here on time. I have to do all these steps. And I imagine that makes it a little bit harder to give up and walk away. You know, you're telling yourself, well, I've done all these things. I got on the bus, I did this and this, did that. I got to make this work. And if you're in a fully online environment, I imagine for some students, it's a lot easier to just give up and turn around and walk away, because there aren't all those extra physical connections holding you in place. So I think that's one thing that's instructors online classes can do, is find every possible way to make those connections to hold the student in place.
Yeah, and that right there is something that I would say to instructors: if you want to form a bond with your students where they will feel that you're approachable, is set up office time, set up Zoom office hours, let them know you want to see them. It's optional, but you do like when they come in, because the students feel intimidated to show up in a Zoom office hour. They feel like they have to come with a question or come. But if you just let them know, I just want to get to know you because I don't have you sitting in a room with me every day. I would like to see you and chat. And then they start to feel like their instructor is a person and not just a robot that's giving them work to do. It's helpful for them to see you as a human.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I was just gonna say, thinking further, that's also acts as an anchor for you. You can say, oh, I see that, you know, Nick has an office hour. Hey, Caleb, now that we're working together, you might actually want to consider bringing these questions to them, and then you'd workshop it with them. Hey, it sounds like this is what you're struggling on. You can direct them towards this area. That actually sounds like a really cool way to work.
Yeah, we hear back from students when we do have a student like that is reluctant to go to an office hour, but then we reassure them it's a safe place. Your instructor wants to see you, wants to hear from you. Then they will report back and say, oh my gosh, that was so helpful. They were so nice. I was able to ask these questions, and but before they do that, they are not
First
sure.
hurdle
Yeah,
is so hard for some students.
Yeah, since I've been in this position, I see what an important job you all have and how much you mean to the students. I guess as an instructor, I always assumed, oh, they'll come to me with all their questions. Why wouldn't they? But I see how busy you guys are. And so many students are going to you guys as allies and to get that extra help. And it's really fantastic that you're in that position.
Another thing that I just wanted to mention is, sometimes all it takes is one little thing that the student takes negatively from their teacher, one little thing that sounds like something they can't do, and they are running as fast as they can. And we're fortunately, if they've gotten connected with us, sometimes we can stop them from failing, like just really, just leaving the building altogether. Like there are some teachers in online classes who in the past have wanted students to use testing centers to take their tests. And that's all they'll put in the syllabus. It's an online class. Somebody might be in Colorado taking this class. And so they're expecting that if the student's in a situation like that, they'll come to the teacher and just ask, hey, I'm in Colorado, I can't come to the testing center, what do you want me to do? But expecting the students to initiate that conversation, many of them won't. Many of them will just bail on that class like right away. So it's just a matter of, thinking about the flight risk students, the ones that are voted most likely to get out of this place as fast as they can if they see one thing that looks like an ill wind,
Yeah. Well, because a lot of them have kind of this imposter syndrome, right? That this is not for me. I'm not supposed to be here. And then when that first thing happens, it's like, yep, that proves it. That's evidence. The universe is telling me I don't belong here. I'm out of here.
We get into many conversations about those little minute details in a class and just like talking somebody down. No, I'm pretty sure that's not what they meant. Have you tried asking about this? Those sorts of things where you're just trying to de-escalate the emotional response to something and give them new possible narratives to what it means to hopefully make it easier to ask the questions that they need to ask.
That's telling me that written tone is extremely important. Like, I know we've probably all had our faculty we've worked with where we've worked on like written tone and what that actually means. And it sounds like it's a great example of, you might write it one way, like I have my own internal dialogue that comes through when I write, but the way I write is probably not going to align with maybe how Caleb reads it. And to like workshop that with peers or us, I think is actually pretty important. Might seem kind of trivial at this point, but what I'm hearing is we've got students that are taking that first face value look at, the wording in your syllabus, the wording in your course, maybe even some of the videos that you're doing, and they're going, nope, yep, as pessimistic as possible. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, sometimes, the tone from one point of view can just be giving informational, but if there's not something that's overtly warm and friendly and, I am just a person too, you can talk to me, that direct is really helpful to students to actually believe it.
So I would love to know, do you guys have anything new happening now this year or on the horizon for next year? What are you guys working on that's different?
Right now we're actually looking for a new coach. The position's posted. If you know anybody, we love an internal candidate. The position closes May 11th. We have a robust application pile to go through so far. It was 30 people so far, which is pretty good. So we're looking forward to that, getting somebody up and running. In the meantime, Julie and I are balancing 1,100 students between the two of us.
Wow.
100 students. That's a lot.
And they're communicative.
Okay.
That's good though. We
So
love
we're
to hear
hoping
from
by fall quarter, we'll have a third coach up and running, we hope.
We are hoping.
And then the capacity will be a little bit easier to manage, we hope.
I mean, even beyond that though, between the two schools, SCC and SFCC, we know that over a third of the students between both of those schools are still all online. We know that in the AA transfer degree programs, I just looked at that information. We have more than 50% of the AA transfer degree students are 100% online at both campuses. So there's way more online students, completely fully online students, that we don't have the capacity to help in the way that we help. And so we just have to do the best we can with what we've got, and just keep trucking along. Yeah.
Well, but we also have, like, you have really good data from the work that you do of the impact you have on those students that do connect with you. Their retention rates are so much higher than like the baseline. Their completion on time rates are higher too. Like, do you have some of those at the top of your head that you could? Sorry, I probably shouldn't just put you on the spot there, but like,
Can you remember all of these numbers?
you don't need to remember all the numbers, but like, I've seen the numbers and they're
Yeah.
really
They're
impressive.
I want to say that our typical pass rate is 80%.
For students that are connected with a success
With
coach.
us, yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I want to say that that's the number that sticks out of my mind. I think our retention hovers in the mid-70s to 80%. Pandemic really kind of messed with that a little bit, but typically it's been really strong. That's a difficult number to find on your own.
Sure.
When you're looking student, like trying to track a student from one point to another, our numbers are, we have so many students that our numbers never go down. So you can't just go by the number of students that we have. But yeah, our GPA, our student GPAs tend to be high. We just,
The impact is very clear, that there's the evidence is there that if students get connected with a success coach, they are more likely to be successful and to stay with us, which is amazing. I wish we had 10 success coaches instead of 2, soon to be 3.
We think it's the best job anywhere on campus or off campus. We love it.
We'll tell them that. Good answer.
Yeah.
Should we see if anyone on Zoom has any questions for the success coaches? Do you have anything you want to chime in with?
YouTube, in case there's anybody over there also.
While you're checking that, I'll tell you the other new thing we have on our horizon, or actually that we have started already this year, Melanie, is that we've hired a student work study to be like a student ambassador for online students. So she is attending the open Zooms that we're having once a week. And she's done a question answer session on Zoom where students came and talked to her, and she's doing a great job too. So that's been a fun thing to get started this year.
Well, and that's on top of the start of term Canvas trainings you all provide, right?
Right, we do Canvas trainings, introductory Canvas trainings before the quarter starts, as well as during the first week of the quarter. We do multiple Canvas trainings and question and answer sessions on Zoom, and those are posted in Canvas in the main announcement area.
Gotcha.
And I see there's been some chat happening here.
You
So
totally got carried away.
yeah, we got so
Okay.
excited with our conversation here. So Early Alert is now called Student Care Report, at SFCC. At SCC, is it?
At
Thanks.
SGC, it's still early
It's
alert.
still Early Alert. Let's see. An automated landing board page that gets added to each course for the first few days before student accesses the course content and taking inform. Yeah,
We've actually been having a conversation through our faculty advisory council of how to get our student Canvas guide in front of the eyes of more students.
Mhm.
We're not quite sure what that looks like yet, but that is something that is on our radar.
And that was a resource that was put together with the help of you two, which I thank you for that, coaching through that. So definitely a big thing. It's a conversation.
Oh, Professor Street said he uses Calendly and has a link in the menu on each class. That is
Great.
super helpful. That scheduling, the ability for students to connect directly to your calendar, see when you're available, match it with a time they're available. it automatically generates a Zoom link and then the meeting is set.
Well, and it reduces a bunch of that anxiety of, oh, I don't know how to ask for help.
Right,
Well, it's just a menu button.
Click the
You
button.
click the
Yeah.
button, you pick a time, and it just happens. And then, I mean, you still have to show up and you still have to talk to somebody, but it reduces that barrier a lot. So Calendly, bookings can also do similar things. Either one of those tools are great and we highly recommend them.
I saw Ursula's acknowledging that she's got some students who are certainly stressed out as well.
yeah,
It's good that they have somebody like you or like Ursula they can go to. Let's see. And then it looks like Professor Street is doing some great things to offer synchronous options for students.
I know we're running out of time, but Professor Street, would you like to kind of explain that chat just a little
Yeah.
bit more? Do you feel comfortable with that? I want to kind of get your thoughts on it, make sure I'm interpreting it right.
Sure. What I'd like, hold on just a second.
Oh, you're fine.
I met my daughter. She's going to have a baby any second.
Awesome.
But I think that we have such a ripe population, a very large population of students. And I'd like to see our institutional research people actually try to get to the bottom of why students profess to want on-ground classes, but have to have online classes because they're not coming to school, right? We know that. If I offer a flex class, if we offer a flex class on ground, they'll come the first couple of days and then they realize they're safely able to go home. And that's what they do. My synchronous class does exactly the same thing. But this quarter I did, because I have some new technology I'm using, and we had to combine the two classes, but I want to keep them separate because one professed to needing a daily class. The other class professed to not needing a daily class. And the one that self-profess that they don't need the daily class do extraordinarily well. But it's also made of students I've had before, and they trust me. I know that. I know it sounds bold to say that, but they know I'm there. They know my Calendly thing. They know I frequently comment on stuff, and that I put videos up instead of having a class session, an hour-long video to watch or something like that. The other class was coming from a different instructor into my pipeline, right? You know how, you got 3 classes in a row and then they all collapse into one. So half the class doesn't know who you are. So it has taken time to build their trust, but they're just not doing as well. And they're the ones that profess to needing a synchronous function, a daily contact, but only one comes and she's done no work in the class. And I don't understand that. But anyway, I don't know if I'm explaining that, but what I'd like to do is see IR do something so that we can understand these students better. Because honestly, when we sit in our department meetings or our advisory board meetings, we can't explain it. We don't have any data. And I know there's, a few thousand data points out there that we could be tapping into. The other thing is I taught for a class at SNHU. It's a global campus. And at the top of their LMS, they have almost every resource a student could use: tutoring, counseling. I'm talking about mental health counseling, and it's all right there for them to choose from. And all you have to do as part of your announcements and such is to refer to it. And it's just there as a menu item, and they can self do it. Now, what we have to do here is we have to put links in our syllabus, or remember to update our links. And that's my big thing. So I can refer to students to it so they can click a link. Otherwise, I've got to do an early alert, which really isn't a speedy process. That's a lot. I know that I don't even know if it has a lot to do with what we're talking about, but I think the key moving forward is really, we've always tried to figure out our students, right? We've always tried to understand our students, but they're changing at a rapid pace and from a perspective that we haven't been before. I feel very comfortable doing what I'm doing. I would like to understand them better. It doesn't mean they're going to change, but it could give me an option to change.
Hmm.
And I've changed about as much as I can.
Seems like you're doing pretty good though.
I do okay. I'm sane.
But it's, it's such a challenge to find out more about the students that we lose, because we lose them. Like,
Yeah.
how do you interview a student that we can no longer contact? That's the eternal struggle, I think. But Julie or Karen, maybe you have some thoughts there from your experiences?
Pre-pandemic, I actually would do that. I would look at people who hadn't registered for an upcoming quarter and give them a call, and I would send out first a bulk email like that just said, hey, I noticed you haven't registered for the upcoming quarter. I just want, wondering if there's anything going on that I might be able to help with. And it tends to be overwhelming when it comes back that horrible things are going on. They've got an illness. Sometimes it's nice things like they're having a baby. But it's usually these big obstacles that they just can't get around right now. And it's just a matter of making sure that they know that they can come back to me when they're ready to come back, and I'll help them get back in. And try to make that as easy and smooth as possible for them. It used to be a lot harder to get into classes. Right now, I think the barriers are really low. So I that at least is something.
Sometimes students just need the message of, it's not that college isn't for you, it's that maybe college isn't for you right now. And there's always a chance to come back. And I don't know if every student understands that. I think sometimes they get it in their head of, I failed out. I can't do this. I missed my chance.
That is, to me, that's a very gratifying phone call to get. We get those a lot too, of somebody who says, I wasn't able to enroll this quarter, but I'm planning to come back in the summer. I'm gonna be there in the fall. Can you help me get ready to register? Because they know it's coming. And that the fact that they can keep our phone numbers, they still have our contact information and their email or wherever, is helpful too, to bring those guys back when the time is right.
We have a Canvas, a non-academic course in Canvas that we put them in, and I leave mine in for a long time. They've disappeared. They haven't been enrolling, but I will still leave them in there because they're still going to be getting messages from me when I'm sending out announcements and whatnot. And they do get back in touch when they're ready to come back in. I think because they do have that constant reminder, even in their personal life, they see these emails come up with like, you got a notification from Canvas about your Connect course.
That's interesting.
That's real quick. I was in a meeting the other day with people that I'm friendly and know, right? It was a common ground, and everybody was talking about student behavior and stuff. And I go, do all of you understand that education is a discretionary activity? And they all looked at me like they got offended, kind of like you guys just did. But I was like, I offended them, but I said, no, understand. Nobody has to go to school.
Yeah.
They have to raise their kids. They have to get gas in their car. They have to take care of themselves. And only when they're taking care of themselves can they even consider anything discretionary. And they might just opt to go on a vacation before going to school. And I said, so it's like managing volunteers. You got to understand, they are going to behave differently because they don't have to be there. So it's an interesting paradigm that we're in, or an environment where we're working with people and we act like I'm your boss, you're in school, you need to get your homework done, and realizing that they can just go, hey, no, I don't. And some of them don't pay for their education, so they even say, no, I really don't. So there's no skin in that game. So you have to kind of get in there and play or work with people that have options.
Yeah.
They're not exercising options. I'm going to wait until Professor so-and-so is teaching because he's really good. It's not that discretionary, but they don't just have to be there. And now that it's online, they don't have to be there at all.
Yeah.
They're turned off. And you can early alert them all you want. And if you try to make phone calls or emails, you don't even know if you got the right email. Because that's just the email they put in the system, right?
Hmm.
That may not be the one they respond to, but Canvas emails work really, really good. They always kind of have to have something to communicate with. So that's the best thing I have is that I can communicate with every student and I know they're in. But they don't have to respond to me. They don't have to do anything. So you kind of want them to want to do something. And as soon as that happens, then you've got the ability to transfer knowledge. Anyway, enough of that crap.
You talk about intrinsic motivation.
Yeah,
Good point. You make an excellent point.
No, yeah, and I mean, the onus is kind of on us, like, how are we gonna bring them to the table? So I
Yeah.
appreciate that perspective, and I think that, I mean, carrying it all the way back around, that's why you two are so successful, the groups of students you work with are so successful. Because we're dealing with people that don't have to be here, but having that extra person to bounce things off of and
Making those
coach them through
connections, maintaining those connections over and over again.
that connection, yeah.
Trying to help them feel that they are in a community where people care about them.
Awesome.
Like
Well,
this,
that's probably a good place
yeah, beautiful.
to end, because we are over time, but thank you so much for coming. I thought this was a really good
Thanks for inviting us.
conversation.
We appreciated getting to come.
Great. All right, I'm gonna end
That's
the
all
live
right.
stream. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for
Thank you.
joining us
We will
today.
see you next
Yeah.
week.
Not scary at all.
Never scary.